This is Beyond the Sidelines with Ethan Schmidt and George Balekji, only on 4stateshomepage.com.
Well, welcome into week 3 of Beyond the Sidelines. I'm Ethan Schmidt. He is George Balekji. And George, we start off with probably one of the most anticipated games of the week. And it was only week 2, but it was 21 years in the making as Webb City and Joplin collided this past Friday.
Let's put game of the week aside, just one of the most anticipated games in the 4-state area. My big thing coming into Friday night between Webb and Joplin, every time they played basketball, every time they played baseball, in the office, that game was emphasized. In the area, the game was emphasized. Finally, in the sport that is most significant, that matters most to Southwest Missouri, they collided, and it was more than we expected. It was more than as advertised. My favorite part of it that you could take away was the best players on each team were making an impact play, and it was haymaker after haymaker. Scoring began with an Isaiah Davis touchdown, answered by Terrell Cabala scooping scoring a blocked field goal, answered by Zach Westmoreland, 71-yard touchdown reception over Terrell Cabala, who's one of the best corners in the league, answered by Devin Weathers' long run. And then Webb City ends up getting the final tally. My biggest takeaway in a 47-27 victory over Joplin. It looks like a blowout at the end, but what everyone has to understand is that Webb City defense hunkered down in the second half, and also Webb City played without their starting quarterback for the last 2.5 quarters as Cade Beeson went down with an injury. Cade Hicks stepped in, going from linebacker to quarterback, played phenomenally well, good athlete in the backfield, and ran that split veer offense to a T.
And as we mentioned, it was former linebacker to quarterback.
Yeah.
So Coach Roderick has to think, well, if I have a good enough linebacker, maybe he can also play quarterback for me here at the high school level. But, of course, 47-27 the final. You talked about Devin Weathers. He had a huge touchdown run. He had over 170 yards on the ground himself. Duran Henderson still looking for those big numbers, but he got in twice into the end zone, which is more than he did in week 1. So already we saw that rushing attack really taking form. And against a Joplin defense that was fairly good, that front 8, front 7 that Joplin bring out there's some big bodies up there.
And Joplin made the move to bring Isaiah Davis and start him at linebacker as well. I think I saw first play of the game, I'm pretty sure it was. He made an impact play in the backfield. Isaiah Davis, one of the bigger linebackers Webb will face all year long. But you're right on that. Devin Weathers, 173 rushing yards, and Duran finished with 105. Between the two of them accumulating that, and then between the two quarterbacks that played as well, 112 rushing yards there. The offensive line for Webb City controlled the line of scrimmage. That was my biggest concern. It wasn't Joplin's offensive line, but it was Webb's offensive line going against Joplin's defense, who for Class 6, yes, they have good athletes, still a little bit undersized. But I also got to say, because Cade Beeson, he was saying coming into the season what he's most confident in and what he thinks his key to success under center for Webb will be was his reads. They said after the game, some of the players you talked to, you said it to me after you shot their first game, Cade will hold the ball in his running back's guts to the last second, stare that linebacker down, and then make his read and make it happen. He was doing that phenomenally well. And then on Cade Hicks' rushing touchdown, what he did was slip out of a tackle. They had him wrapped around his ankle. Cade's a good wrestler himself. It was like a single leg they were going for, slipped out and ran in for the score. But it was just when it came down to it, the biggest stars making the biggest plays and the halftime adjustments too, because Isaiah Davis was getting his way on the ground. 12 carries, 100 yards he finished with, broke off a few big runs of like 40 yards plus, 14-yard touchdown run as well, but in the second half he really quieted down.
Absolutely, and Alex Gaskell, another big name, also had a huge receiving touchdown. Cade Hicks found somebody that he can throw to, so we don't know exactly what we're going to see from Webb City at quarterback right now with injuries and stuff like that, but of course,
best of luck for Cade Beeson. Right. On top of that, winning aside, when I heard he went down, I hope he gets back fine.
Absolutely.
And John Roderick has a great problem because he has 2 quarterbacks that can run that offense very well. And also heads up to defenses next year because Cade Hicks is only a junior.
That's right. Let's move along now over to Carthage. Carl Junction. It was at Carl Junction. Carthage came out 42-18. Zeke Sappington, he had himself a night, 178 yards on the ground, 4 rushing touchdowns. He found the lanes, and he said, normally I'm a guy who likes to sit back and pass, or even when I'm running, I like to just kind of sit back and diagnose. But he said, when I saw the lanes, I just said, hey, I'm going to the house. And he did it 4 times.
Exactly. And, a big part, we were going into the season, my call for best quarterback in this conference is Zeke Sappington. And we get to see him show off that arm. He hooked up with Jaden Morgan for a passing touchdown in week 1. But like you said, 178 yards on the ground. Credit to the Carthage offensive line. 2nd week in a row, 350-plus rushing yards, and to do it against a really good Carl Junction defense. But here's my reality, Ethan, and they got to face it at Carl Junction. Raekwon Weston, we undersold how him going down with an ACL injury will impact impact Carl's not only offense but defense. We thought with the genius that Doug Buckmaster is, he'll make it work between Joe Kennedy and Alex Baker. Reality for the Bulldogs, Raekwon's not going to walk through that door, and the impact is even bigger on the defensive side of the ball because we've never seen a stretch like this for Carl Junction. Their first home loss since 2012. That's a Division I athlete on the offensive side of the ball and on the defensive side of the ball. But as I say that, I'm going to be even more candid. The way Missouri and Misha formats their playoffs, regular season doesn't matter, guys. Everyone gets a shot in districts. Survive and advance is what comes around when it gets to late October and November. So, hey, figure it out by then. Next game for them, Republic, also 0-2. They should get the win there, but don't undersell how hungry Republic will be.
And absolutely, and another big shout out to Carthage's defense, because Carthage's defense came out and they played very well and stopped Joe Kennedy several times. So that was a big momentum booster for them as well.
6 sacks they totaled, Ethan. That's a big part. And Alex Martini, who's, one of the more upper hand basketball players you see in the area, plays a hybrid defensive end, outside linebacker position for John Guidy, and he was getting in there as well.
Absolutely. Let's move on now. Lamar 51, Hollister 6. Some people saying, yeah, this is going to be a high-scoring game, and you and I said a high-scoring game for Lamar. So they did pick up consecutive win number 51 by putting up 51 points, and Lamar just looking like a well-oiled machine.
Now, I got to say I was wrong because I predicted a Lamar shutout. It was 51-6 the final. But Lamar, what they did, they faced a little adversity in the beginning of the game because Hollister was making good plays. You're finding Duncan Gepner in the backfield, finding Landon Hardman in the backfield. Maybe a little slow to get out of the gates, but they're so composed. They can rely on the defense because letting up just 6 points, I mean, they will continually take good offenses and good offensive players. And you go back to the days of when they'd play Carl Junction every year, they will continually lock down those running backs and offensive weapons that they'll see. They do it once again. Face adversity. It's week 2. Everyone's still picking together for them to get the win. 51-6, number 51 in a row. Lamar's looking great as always.
And don't forget about our guy that had 10 carries, 110 yards, and how many touchdowns did Trevor
Sprints.
have? Our guy sprints, 2 touchdowns for Trevor Medlin.
Yep.
We talked about it. He had a awesome stiff arm in that game, and he's only about way shorter than both of us. And we're not tall, so if you think that we're maybe big, we're not tall at all.
I've gotten the you look taller on TV before, and let me tell you, that breaks my heart.
And I think Trevor, when we watched him, I think he plays like he's about 6 foot, but when he gets out into the open field, you can't catch him, and he proved that against Hall.
That's a big part. They make sure to get him the ball in open field. The one touchdown we made sure to get on the highlight, you see him coming around the end, throws a stiff arm, but stops and goes very quick. He's a great track star, so it's just translates to the football field.
Absolutely. And now a game that you were at, and it was a great defensive performance by all means. Pittsburgh 43, Labette County 8. The reason why we're so entranced on this game is because Pittsburgh faced off against a soon-to-be Division I quarterback in Easton Dean, who's already committed to Iowa State back in February.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh came out and played great football against him.
That's right. 88 total yards of defense. Total yards of offense for Labette County. They allowed 35 yards in the second half. And the JV defense eventually went in. There was a running clock in that game in the fourth quarter. So who knows how much the varsity actually allowed. But more importantly, 4 turnovers, 2 interceptions, big ones by Jarek Butcher and Joel Kafka in the first and second quarter. It was to a point where they were just smothering the Grizzly offense. Dylan Jordan coming off the edge. That's a kid that's really earning a scholarship for himself this fall because he loves to hit. He's very athletic. Coach Nicholson said he may be the best athlete on that team, and they showed it. This was also a game that was very hyped up because as it was, there was a whispers. Could Labette, they possibly could beat Pittsburgh, and the defense didn't want anything to do with that. And they came up and they showed them right away. Now the big part is Easton Dean bounce back. Hey, you face one of the toughest defenses you'll see all year. Continue to grow from here. Season's not over yet.
And like we said, this is actually I still give Pittsburgh a shutout on their defense because the only points that were scored
was on a kick return
touchdown.
And a big part they see in their offense too. Chase Curtis is out the door. There was a question. Brett Wiemers, Ty Rourke at quarterback. Well, Ty Rourke got the nod. Wiemers was playing wide receiver, so it shows how selfless he is. And that's a coach's son. So what do you expect for there? But for Ty Rourke, what he did over 100 yards passing, 75 yards rushing, 2 rushing scores, a passing score. So more of a dual threat than you got in a throwback pocket passer. And Kurt going to keep defenses honest. This is a good team to watch.
Awesome. And we're going to move on now to surprises that we saw. And I don't think we can keep considering these teams surprises because they've started off doing so well. One of them being Neosho. They're 2-0 to start the season. Neosho 20-7. They beat Branson.
And that was the score going into halftime. So it showed how this defense played end-to-end against Branson. They only allowed 158 yards of offense to Branson. And a big part, Gage Kelly, we'd say, how would he be in his, encore performance? Well, it was a 14-7 game, 30 seconds left in the first half. He has a 50-yard rushing touchdown. touchdown. Neosho keeps stepping up. And I said that with Coach Miller there, going into his second year, the defense clicked towards the end of the last season. How would they come out this year? And they've exceeded all expectations.
Another team that's 2-0 in the Big 8, Cassville 34, Springfield Catholic 7. We think of last week with Springfield Catholic and that shootout they had with Seneca, turn around Cassville 34-7 victory.
Yeah, and there was 90 total points in that shootout with Seneca. Springfield Catholic putting up 50, and Tyson Riley, one of the best athletes in the area, so stout that he's being recruited as just a straight athlete by FCS members and all the academies as well, Army, Navy, Air Force too. But a big part, they held his offense to 7 points, and it's the same names we've heard for the past few years with Cassville and Shandon Haney and Anthony Tolbert. I was saying coming into the season, they have 18 seniors, 16 returning starters. This is the year that we say Cassville will do good, but it's also the year they have to follow that up because eventually you have to live up to the hype. And so far through 2 games, Cassville is doing just that.
Well, as we've already got through most of these games here, we'd like to go back to our previous game of the week, and we have our call of the week.
Davis awaits the snap. It's a low snap. The kick is blocked. It's blocked by the Cardinals. Great defensive stand for Webb City. Here come the Cardinals. They pick it up. Kabbalah has it for Webb. Running down the far side, 40. He's at the 30, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Webb City. Touchdown, Terrell Kabbalah.
And again, thank you to KNEO, Adam Winkler, for another great call of the week. We've had him now for the past 2 weeks, and I always send him a message. I'm just like, hey, guys, if you can, and they're always great about it. So a big shout-out to KNEO for the call of the week. Now we turn our attention to the new game of the week, and if you couldn't tell by the helmets that were on the desk earlier, we're going to be at Frontenac as Frontenac hosts a longtime rival in St. Mary's Colgan. That game, of course, Friday, and there's a lot of excitement for both these teams because they're both coming off state runner-up performances.
That's right. It's two of the most, successful programs in recent years in Southeast Kansas. And of course, a part of, the prime years, the pinnacle years of Colgan was Mark Smith at quarterback and his dad as the head coach. Now Mark Smith's the head coach at Frontenac. A big part we saw Colgan break out. Cade Simmons at quarterback, Cal Marquardt at wide receiver. They bring back 2 experienced players because Cade Simmons over 300 yards of offense, 5 scores. Big part, though, Marquardt stepping into Jeremiah Bush's role as wide receiver. He was a guy, 3rd and long. They could chuck the ball to him. Who's going to do that now? They found their man. But then on top of that, in Frontenac, Jake Backman, he steps in. And what Frontenac has gotten a lot of this offseason, Ethan, is they're inexperienced. They're young. They don't return a lot. They're not going to be good. Brendan Ishimura, one of the starters from last year, bringing back, he heard that. They all know it's bulletin board material for them. That's going to be a very good game for sure.
Yeah, and Ishimura actually had 8 catches of his own against Richmond as we saw Frontenac defeat Richmond 19-8. And of course, we talked about Colgan. They had a big win in week 1, 40-6 over Columbus. But both these teams, it's much like how we saw Webb City getting that competition in week 2. These guys are getting to see a rival in week 2, and it means a lot to them. And we talked about this earlier. Frontenac has a chance. They started off against Richmond. They end up taking up St. Mary's Colgan this week. Next week, they go against Commerce, who was in the quarterfinals last year in Oklahoma. And I believe that 4th game is Galena.
Exactly. And, so like you said, it goes back to a good Oklahoma team, and then Galena and that 3-headed monster of J.C. Shelton, Joseph Helen, and Cooper Lawson. So big stretch for Frontenac. For them to get this win, if they can, would mean the world to them. But on top of that, they got to make sure to have that, short-term memory and bounce back very quickly as well.
Absolutely, George. And now, of course, George and I, we're always fired up for Friday night because, well, it's Friday night. But, of course, if you haven't gotten fired up just yet, I know it's early in the week, but take a look at this. I think you'll like it. Here's our hype video for our game of the week.
Ethan, between that video and the Terrell Kabbalah field goal block, I had chills both times. So.
I'm excited. I'm fired up for this game, and I'm fired up that we got 2 great rivalries back-to-back weeks. Of course, we move into predictions now. You and I both were 4-1, 9-1. There's been
we went perfect last week. First week, we both went 4-1.
9-1.
Andy Searcy is undefeated. Don't remind me. He reminds us.
I'm sorry. But, of course, we start off with our predictions. Joplin at Carthage. This is our first prediction. This is a big prediction. I leave it to you, sir.
This is a tough one, and I'll get to my decision after, but the situation for both teams. Joplin only doesn't have the mental bounce back, but the physical bounce back, because this is probably one of the most physical games they're coming off of since last season, facing Webb City, a team that will constantly run the ball down their throat. Well, it's going to be the same recipe as we've seen through 2 weeks for Carthage. They're going to run the ball as well. On top of that, their defense is very skilled. So how can Joplin respond to that? Because this is the stretch of them joining the COC. Can they do it? It's a much tougher conference, and everyone hypes it up. Yes, they're talented. Yes, they got the athletes. They're well coached, everything like that. But until it's a real deal in your first go around through it, how will they respond? But I bounce that back with what we saw was one of the best performances in his 2 years as a starter with Zach Westmoreland, what he had against Webb City. Over 100 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns as well. I think is a bigger night against this Carthage secondary. But I just think Carthage's defense and their run game is what determines this outcome as well, because we saw that's what worked for Webb City, their run game and their defense. That's why I'm going to give the Tigers a bounce back on this one.
Yeah, Carthage definitely stepped up and took away the running attack for Joe Kennedy and the Carl Junction Bulldogs, so that defense can take that away. So they will have to go to the air, and that'll be a big secondary matchup for Carthage if they can control Zach Westmoreland. I'm going to stick with you on this one. I think Carthage gets the win. I was very impressed with what they did in week 2 against Carl Junction, so I'm going to stick with that pick as well. I think Carthage has it.
And this is a big part for Joplin. You guys, this is the second week in a row no one's taking you. Prove us wrong. You're the underdogs once again. Nothing's earned. Nothing's given. Everything's earned. You guys got to go out and get it.
Yeah, and these are two very tough opponents in the COC, probably the 2 toughest this year that they're going to see, and it's back-to-back weeks. So they have to definitely come out and hope that they don't take 2 big hits to the chin early on. Our next game, battle of 2-0s here, Webb City versus Neosho. I'm going to go with Webb City. I think they're going to continue that run. I think this is a big test for Neosho, and we'll see how they come out of this one. If they're able to hang around for a little bit, I think it definitely proves big for them as their season goes on. But Webb City, I like the momentum.
Webb City's coming off one of the most tightly contested games. Both teams play phenomenally well between them and Joplin. The difference maker for Joplin was the athletes they have. Neosho just doesn't have that. Yes, they have the defense, but Webb City's familiar with Neosho. They know what they're going to run. They're going to face that wishbone offense. They run a split back veer, so nothing's going to blow their linebackers' minds either. It's a big part. Ruben Lenker and Sam Thomas have stepped up back-to-back weeks for them. We'll see how they look under quarterback coming into this week, but still I see nothing stifling the Cardinals in this one. They're an easy pick every single week. The only 2 games I'm particular about is what they just overcame in Joplin and when they'll play Carthage. So, but aside from that, give me the cards on this one, Ethan.
Absolutely. So we move on now to Nevada at Seneca. Both teams 0-2 in this matchup, coming into this matchup at least. Seneca, I think this is the game where they get everything kind of figured out. I think this might be the game where they're able to do that. Nevada is going to hit them in the mouth early on. They have a great running attack. They have a great offensive line, so it's going to come up to that Seneca defense if they're able to step up. But I also believe really in that Seneca offense. I think they have the ability to generate points. We saw that against Springfield Catholic.
Exactly.
They just have to get past this past week against Reed Springs, and I think they will.
Yeah, and it's, what Nevada's strength is in their offensive line. They have abundance of seniors and abundance of all-district talent, but that's where it stops. And that's why I'll take Seneca in this one, too, because Gavin Klaus back under center, Trey Wilson's there. Coach McFarland came over from Webb City. He's seen it all being in that program and learning under John Roderick. He knows what he can do for his guys. I think this is the week to get back on track as well.
We move on now. Girard at Galena. Both teams are 1-0 to start their seasons in Kansas. I'm going to give it to Coach Sarwinski's crew, though. I think, as you mentioned, that 3-headed monster they have in the backfield, and then, of course, the emergence of a young Nick Sarwinski, so we can see what happens there in that backfield. But again, just the great rushing attack of Galena. They put up over 50 points in week 1. Girard did have a great game against Baxter, but I think Galena's where they want to be, and I think they're going to keep improving.
Yeah, not only is Coach Sarwinski a great coach, he has a son that's playing at Pitt State, who's a great player for him as a Bulldog, and now he's another Sarwinski coming up and at him. So
we got to meet. We forgot about that. We got to meet him.
Great. I met them all great people, so that's what makes it even more fun.
Absolutely.
But I'll go with Galena in that one. I think they take Girard.
I think you got it on this one. So let's see where we're at. We'll see where we're at the end of the week. Of course, our game of the week, we won't make that prediction until Friday, so you have to check out our social medias on that. But of course, we always turn to one guy when it comes to predictions because he's been in the area for such a long time. We call him the sports Swami in the area. And so let's see what Andy Searcy is picking for this week. So in our game of the week, Andy Searcy taking Colgan. He has Carthage winning their game against Joplin, Webb City beating Neosho, Seneca getting the win as well, and Galena. So right now, of course, Andy Searcy, He's 10-0. He's looking for 15-0. So we'll see what Andy has.
I got to come back with an Andy impersonation or something.
I think so too.
Drop and pull off the upset. I want him to get an L
right.
too.
You want to make sure that we can get, we'll take a loss, I guess, if Andy doesn't go perfect and can keep, rubbing in our face a little bit there. But of course, normally every week we turn to Ray Foreman, but this is Labor Day weekend, and we said, hey, the hardest working guy in all of television, we got to give this guy a break. But that does not mean that we don't have you covered for Friday because, of course, joining us at this time, Adam Sherwinski. Adam, welcome in, man. Welcome to Beyond the Sidelines.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. What do you got for us for Friday?
Well, the bad news is it looks like it's going to be a wet one. We have chances of showers and thunderstorms for the entire day, and that does include kickoff for much of the 4 states. With that as well, also, we do have the possibility of more moisture because we do have a tropical storm, Gordon, moving towards the 4 states, providing more moisture. We have that cold front as well, so thunderstorms are going to be abundant. So that means if you are going out and about, and again, if we could get some where it's just a bunch of showers or maybe not even some thunder at all, I think people will still get to play their games. It just depends on where you're at, and that's a little far in the future to tell exactly who's going to play where. But I think it's going to be a wet one depending on where you're at, and I think if you have one of those fields that are more mud and dirt, it's going to be a muddy game. So that'll be fun to watch.
So a fun game is what you're saying. You're an old football guy. You know the same thing. You like the muddy games. You're a lineman. You know exactly those muddy games. You love those.
I do and I don't. They're fun to get muddy and dirty and play around in, but I miss the turf and the fact that I have actually traction because I was a lineman. Yeah. So the traction is what I really like with the turf field. So.
I love with his and Ray's forecast. It honestly gets to the point this time of year. I really, literally do not care Monday through Thursday.
Right.
Even Monday through Friday. I'm always like, hey guys, what's it going to be 7 o'clock on Friday? That's all I think about.
That's right.
And to be fair, I'm the same way too. To be fair, I'm like thinking, what are these guys going to be shooting in? What are these guys going to be looking in? So definitely pack those garbage bags and umbrellas while you're out there.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate it. Thank you so much, Adam. And of course, every week we are just so excited that we're able to come out here and actually put this on. And again, we haven't thanked them last week, but we have to thank all the ADs, all the coaches that have donated to the set. Whether it was helmets or jerseys or pennants or our huge brotherhood sign that we have. We have a lot of good stuff that we have here. That big, huge Lamar tiger. That's one of our favorite pieces. Let's see if we can get a shot of that real quick.
I'm going to grab that sucker.
Of the big Lamar tiger over here. That's one of our favorite pieces. Look at that. That's such a beautiful piece of work right there. I love that.
Out of everything I expected us to get, and I saw that, it literally blew my mind. But what more do you expect from Coach Bailey?
Exactly.
Great dude.
We want to have a great representation of Lamar. So you don't always get to see that on the set either. So
and also the new addition, Joplin, they broke out their all grays, the alternates.
Right.
That's how much this game meant to them. You know, they wanted to bring out some new swagger, and they were playing with it. That's a team with swagger. What they have to do not lose that confidence that they have. They see how close they are to Webb now. They see how close they are to beating them, because that's one of the biggest tests they got since they were in the playoffs. Let's be realistic, honestly. Yeah. So now they're at that point. So something like that, and it's thank you for letting us hang it up in the set as well. That's what they're working with here.
Absolutely. And George, of course, we are so very thankful for that, and we're so excited to get another week into the books and get another week fired up. And of course, you can always check us out during the week because we got a lot of cool stuff that we do during the week as well.
Of course, Monday night's Performer of the Week, and it's going to be a tough pick this week. And every Thursday night, we air a Game of the Week preview as well, and just stuff throughout the week as well. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We always post from there on our social media pages too.
Absolutely, and that'll do it for us on Beyond the Sidelines Week 3. We hope that you join us next week. You see this only here on 4stateshomepage.com.
This is Beyond the Sidelines with Ethan Schmidt and George Balekji, only on 4stateshomepage.com.